I have noticed that many women, myself included, tend to prefer being dominated in the bedroom, but I have not seen as many men talking about how much they prefer being dominant. This has led me to wonder if men on average prefer dominating their partner as much as women prefer being dominant, or if they find it somewhat unusual when women are into that sort of thing. Story 1. I like it occasionally, but I hate it being the default expectation. At the end of the day, it usually means having to take all the initiative, figuring out everything your partner wants, and getting the bare minimum of attention in return. Story 2. I have had to learn to be more dominant and assertive because I cannot attract and keep women if I do not behave that way. I always wanted women to approach me and initiate intimacy, but they do not. Story 3. It's challenging for men. I love the idea. The problem is that women are not good at communicating that preference, and you look inconsiderate if she is not interested. So you take the safe route. She concludes it is not your preference. Story 4. Men who talk openly about being dominant are criticized by women. You can be that way if both parties like it. You just cannot admit to it. It is a double standard, but there you go. Story 5. I am perfectly happy taking the lead or taking control, but I am fairly reluctant and uncomfortable getting rough with a woman I care about. The first girl I ever went out with was into being choked and spanked. I tried doing it for her, and she kept saying she wanted it harder, but I was already starting to hate myself for doing it as hard as I was. Story 6. I don't really like it. I can do it and I can enjoy doing it. But being dominant is a skill, and I have to train my brain to activate it. Being dominant means knowing how to spank correctly, how to manhandle appropriately, how to engage in intense sexual activity without harming your partner, come up with creative and sexy insults and commands, and use a commanding voice. I feel like I turn into some kind of dungeon master or an actor or mascot whose job is to immerse the partner into being submissive. And yes, I hate doing this half-heartedly. Repeating phrases like, "Oh yeah, take that 100 times in a row" is meaningless. Many say you have to trust your dominant to be submissive. That's true, but you also have to trust your submissive to be dominant too. Know their limits well enough to touch them but not break them. Trust they won't laugh at you, and trust that you can take an act and feel safe. Even though I love hardcore pornography, in real life I prefer gentle sex. Story 7. How do men feel about being dominant? I have noticed that many women, myself included, tend to prefer being dominated in the bedroom. However, I have not seen as many men express how much they prefer being dominant. This has made me wonder if men, on average, prefer dominating their partner as much as women prefer being dominant, or if they find it a little strange when women are into that sort of thing. For the most part, it is about men trying to make women happy. I am definitely like this. My wife is very submissive. Because of this, I had to become dominant. I am always in control and decide what we do and what she does. I am okay with this because I am flexible and enjoy sex in many ways, but I am not naturally completely dominant in bed. For a long time, I tried to get her to tell me what she wanted at night and never got a clear answer. This went on for years, and I became frustrated until she eventually explained that she wants me to tell her what she wants and what she is going to do. Obviously, there are some boundaries and specific things that turn her on. So I decide everything all the time. It is fun because I get to do and have her do pretty much whatever I want. But it is a lot of work, and I would not mind her taking the lead some of the time. Story 8. I think it is a very small subset of men who enjoy being dominant. The only benefit that comes with domination is control, whether that be complete or partial. Otherwise, domination is just work. The vast majority of men I know, myself included, are dominant solely because they have to be. Few women will even entertain the idea of a non-dominant man, even if it meant he was not submissive, just non-dominant. It is not a binary, after all. I am a bisexual man who is a switch. Even with other bisexual women, I was often not dominant enough for them. With bisexual and gay men, it was often uncertain which role I would take, and it would not be decided until further into the relationship. Even with gay or bisexual men I know who are solidly tops, several are not dominant. They do not want control, they just prefer that position. I do not like dominating. It is just something I have to do. I would prefer to be considered on equal footing with my partner, especially in the bedroom. Story 9. I do not like that it is expected. I also feel incredibly awkward when I try to be dominant, but as long as they are into it, I am fine with it. Story 10. It's a role many of us are forced into by social norms. I am sure many men would prefer to be a submissive. The difference is better described as chaser and chased. I have never been the chased, and I tire of chasing. Story 11. It was weird at first, but it has been 16 years since the first woman asked, and literally every woman I have been with expects it from me because of the way I look. I enjoy it now. There is a fine line where you need to establish what is okay, because some women absolutely find it a turn-off to establish boundaries by talking about it first. Story 12. I haven't noticed nearly as many men talking about how much they prefer being dominant. Have you perhaps noticed that boys and men are generally told not to oppress or take up space? I would argue that while it seems obvious that people shouldn't restrict other people's individual rights, there has been an additional effort, particularly in modern industrialized societies, to discourage men from pursuing any sort of dominance. So, while women's desires may have stayed the same in this regard, there might be changes in what men are raised to desire, which is fewer displays of dominant behavior, whether they want to or not. Story 13. When I was 26, now 36, I joined FetLife on a lark. I had heard about it online, mostly in joking references. About a month passed from signing up to when I actually took time to explore it. My first impression was that it was Facebook for deviants. The volume of options in creating a profile, like what you are into or not into specifically, was intriguing. I saw words I did not know, and I went down the rabbit hole to see what might apply to me. Turns out I do not have a strong power dynamic interest, and instead I am into breeding, impregnation kink, and adult breastfeeding with a side dish of mommy kink. After a few months on the site, I found a couple of things to be true. There are a lot of deeply damaged people on there, and I have extremely little in common with the vast majority of FetLife users, where at least 3/4 of people are into power dynamics of some kind. I can do dominant things and submissive things as well, but the fact that it is not a cornerstone of my kink meant when people messaged me, it was the same pattern. We would talk about what we were into, as if we were talking about our grocery lists and dinner plans, shockingly casual, and they would always disappear. Multiple times I was messaged by women, some of them opening up by calling me daddy as an initial interaction, either asking if I was looking for a submissive or criticizing me based on something I wrote for not being a true dominant. Additionally, I expected more variation, but it was overwhelmingly men listing they are dominant with blank profiles and women listing they are submissive. It was also my first exposure to polyamorous people, where I learned that there are no average polyamorous people. They are mostly autistic white men in wolf shirts with bipolar women who may not be attractive, or amateur porn stars with plastic surgery in open marriages. Nobody else. If I was open to power dynamics, that would have put me off. Eventually, the hypocrisy and constant trauma dumps were too much and I left that community. Story 14. Let's break it down with full honesty. A lot of men like to be dominant. Switches just understand that it is the norm and do not mind either way. It is a non-issue to most. What is an issue is using that as an excuse not to be involved. Essentially, that is the real reason why men think women who are dominant in bed are attractive. It is not necessarily because they like the dominance, some do, but mostly because her being dominant guarantees that she is fully into it and actively involved. She will openly desire them. It is a guarantee that she is not going to be a pillow princess or a starfish. But you can do that while being submissive. If you are enthusiastic, your partner will most likely be happy either way. Story 15. It's a little low-key weird to me. I have trouble resolving dominance with enthusiastic consent at all stages. I feel more comfortable if I have an equal partner in moving things along sexually. I had a girlfriend who told me, "Don't ask. I need you to grab me like you need me. Throw me on the bed. Be dominant." But if she wasn't in the mood, she would get so angry if I tried to follow her instructions. It made me feel bad. Story 16. I know your question isn't strictly about kink, but I'm a male dominant and have known this about myself since I was aware of sexuality. The problem I have is that expressing this as a part of myself is seen as taboo unless I clearly have a partner who also makes it clear to others that my preferences are consensual. because being a sadist in most people's eyes equals being a real-life monster. Even with a partner willing to come out and defend me, I've had former feminist friends believe I must be brainwashing or abusing these women into actually liking it. Every piece of bondage and discipline, dominance and submission, sadism and masochism-related media I've seen tends to be from the submissive's perspective. Even the only art I've seen that portrays the dominant side of things is primarily a lesbian relationship. So there is virtually no positive male representation of men who are sexually dominant. On the other side, it feels like women get much praise nowadays for their sexuality. Meanwhile, I'm treated like a predator just for engaging in my own sexuality. Story 17. Oh, I'm into it, but she needs to be able to be vulnerable with me. You need to like it, all right? You need to be comfortable with the fact that you like it. You need to be comfortable with me knowing that you like it. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to ravage you just because I'm smitten by you. You don't get the plausible deniability of only participating for my sake. If you don't show up with enthusiasm, it's not going to happen. Story 18. The surveys I have seen suggest that more women prefer being submissive in bed than men prefer being dominant. This matches what I have heard from friends active in kink communities. There is a low-key crisis due to the lack of men who want to be dominant, which sometimes leads to them behaving poorly without consequences. Story 19. I get hot when she's hot. If she's into it, I'm into it. But actually controlling another person doesn't do anything for me. People aren't objects. Can be fun to play that way for a while, though. I worried about going too far or hurting her accidentally. But then I found a comment on Reddit and it was perfect. I do this, my wife goes crazy, and it's completely safe while constantly verifying consent. Read that, and if it seems like something you'd like, show it to the person of your choice and see what they say. Story 20. I would prefer being dominant, but that position is fraught with challenges these days. I have found that many women are uncomfortable talking about what they want, and some even find discomfort threatening. Additionally, many women expect you to know what they want without communicating it. Story 21. I am fine with it, but I am tired of the number of women who use liking to be dominated as an excuse to be lazy. Story 22. I find it boring. The reason is that most women who say they like to be dominated actually prefer to be an edgy kind of starfish. It bores me, the expectation that I do all the work, put in the creativity, do the hitting, binding, and come up with new ideas. If you are truly submissive, that's great. But these trend submissives really get on my nerves. Story 23. I have never been dominated by a woman, but I know that I am a switch and would love to have the experience. Story 24. I think men just take it for granted that they have to be dominant. There is no reason to talk about it. It is not about what we like. We are just happy to be invited to the party. It is like dating. It is not that we like making the first move and talking to women. We just have to, or we do not date. Period. Story 25. As long as a preference for me being dominant does not mean they want me to do everything and come up with all the ideas, then I think it is a fun idea. Unfortunately, when someone speaks of wanting to be dominated, this is often what they mean. Not all the time, but it exists. Story 26. Well, remember, this has to be your idea. If he says, the idea of being rough with you turns me on, and it does not turn you on, that is going to lead to a really awkward conversation. Even if he does like the idea, even as role play, he cannot be the one to bring it up. Story 27. Married for over 24 years. I would say my wife is in charge about 5% of the time. The closest she comes to dominating me is controlling the pace in the spoon position. The rest of the time, she is either on her back or on her knees, accepting what I am giving. I have asked her numerous times if she would initiate intimacy once in a while, but for the last 10 to 12 years, that has not happened. Don't get me wrong, we are still intimate about twice a week, which is not bad for being married for a quarter of a century. However, I find it frustrating because when we were younger, she was more assertive, pursued intimacy, and cared about my pleasure. I don't think that is the case now. I am sure body image plays a significant role. She is engaged, appears to be enjoying herself, and reaches satisfaction, but she is never the one in control. Story 28. I prefer being dominant because it is an escape from my reality. I am agreeable at work, trying to be a subordinate to earn raises and promotions. My fiancée is a supervisor. Her entire day is about control and directing. She enjoys being in control except in our relationship and the bedroom. She transitions from boss to a more submissive role in private, and I shift from compliance to taking dominant control. I express my desire and ownership because her body feels like mine. I take strong dominant control because I do not get to do that often. She wants to be dominated, so it works well for us. Story 29. No, I think most men want a partner. Personally, I have had complaints both ways, so you can never win. Overall, if I am the one held accountable for the outcome of every decision, then I will make every decision, as it is only right that responsibility and authority go hand in hand. However, that sounds insanely tiring, which is why I would want a partner. That could mean different roles, jobs, environments, or knowledge-based contributions. Traditionally, he was responsible for outside the house, and she was responsible for inside. Overall, shared responsibility means shared stress. Honestly, a lot comes down to communication and trust. On a day-to-day basis, you understand each other's strengths and weaknesses and can complement each other. In extreme situations, I say to run or push them out of the way, and they know I would only do that for a valid reason with talking and explanations afterward. Then there is the bedroom aspect. To me, the difference between plain sex and making love is whether you are using the other person as a masturbatory aid or if you care about the other person's pleasure. So yes, things may get rougher, but it is less about pure dominance and more about caring for her and ensuring she enjoys it. There are occasions where both want to be in charge, and that can be fun, but again, it comes down to knowing your partner. For example, this was a woman who joined the army as a tomboy, so no, not weak. Yet after training and wearing camouflage day in and day out, she wanted to wear more makeup and girly things in her free time. Sorry for the rambling and lack of conciseness. Story 30. It feels more like something we have to do because women want it, rather than actually being interested in it. I would prefer to go without any of it. Story 31. When I am in the mood, I love it. That being said, life is hard and sometimes you just want to have sex without having to perform. I have been with women who go overboard and want me to dominate them for hours. That can be fun, or it can be annoying if you are just wanting a quick, enjoyable session. In my experience, the more independent a woman is, the more she wants that performative alpha male energy in bed. Story 32. Oh, she likes this. I guess I will do this. This is what we are thinking about. Men do not get to communicate their preferences. That is why it is taboo to ask a woman her precise weight, but asking a man his precise height is just another icebreaker. Story 33. As someone who is generally dominant in the bedroom, I find that more often than not women use "I am submissive" as code for "I am lazy in bed." And that is not acceptable. Being submissive does not mean you do not play a part in what happens during sex. If you are the kind of submissive who only does what they are told, when they are told, then you are not truly submissive. You are just lazy and inconsiderate. Story 34. I don't feel confident about it. I don't want to be really dominant. My ex said I was great at leading her in bed, setting the pace, putting her in positions, and making it so she could just let herself go and be taken with consent. I don't know if that's dominance. I see it like when you're dancing. One person has to lead, but both are active participants. I don't want to use a woman like she is an object. I know that's not what being dominant must mean, but it's part of it in my head. You can, of course, also do it with words. But I don't feel like dominating, not even with words. Honestly, that relationship I had also fell apart because she wanted to be dominated hard in the way I described, and I couldn't and didn't want to. I just wanted to make love. Story 35. Seems like old hat to me. Why do I have to be this imaginary figure in your head? In my reality, my girlfriend is already the woman I want to be with. I am not a fan because of weird expectations. I just want to be me. Story 36. I am deeply submissive but have never been able to express it. I pretend to be dominant with my girlfriend to some extent but have limits. For example, I cannot choke her no matter how much she wants me to because of major discomfort factors. Either way, ironically, it is all me bending to her will. There is a chance you may be topping your boyfriend from the bottom. Story 37. Personally, I prefer being dominant. I do not mind if my partner takes control sometimes. Feels nice to feel wanted. I have never experienced it in real life, but the thought is pleasant. However, I do not enjoy bondage. Story 38. It's a lot of work, to be honest. I enjoy setting the pace and taking charge of things some of the time, but if she needed me to do that all the time, I would get very tired of it. It becomes very easy to feel as though she is not as into me if she does not take charge occasionally. Story 39. It's exhausting. All I ever want is a woman to take the initiative, bring the action, and be affectionate. But no, I have to make all the effort for her pleasure, and I have to do it intuitively because asking would break the tension. Constantly being forced into being dominant is exhausting. Story 40. We like to be dominant, but saying we want to spank you and get called daddy is not the most socially acceptable thing to announce. I do not want anything crazy, just light stuff. That said, role-playing and power dynamics seem to be more important to women in my experience. For me, it is more of a bonus. Story 41. One night I dominate you, the next you dominate me. I don't care, both do it for me. 33-year-old straight male. Story 42. I prefer to be dominant. However, I have encountered women who seem shy about submitting. Their responses when I take the initiative are very positive, but they cannot admit what they want. This makes it difficult to understand and navigate their preferences. I would rather a woman tell me her boundaries so I can respond accordingly. However, women often have a hard time expressing them verbally. Story 43. It is very frightening. If you care for the person you are with, you want to relax and respect their wishes, but it is easy to go beyond their unstated boundaries and make them feel unsafe. It ruins the mood for both people when it goes wrong and can put a damper on the relationship for some time. Story 44. Most women I have been with wanted me to lead, if not dominate them as well. Only one has ever taken the initiative to take the lead. It is what I am used to, so I am fine with it, but if my wife wanted to lead sometimes, I would not object. Story 45. I don't mind women who want to be dominated, but in my experience, it is more comfortable for them than an actual kink. If it is just rolling over and letting me take charge because they are suffering from decision fatigue, that is not much fun. If she is working at being a feisty little minx, I have no problem being dominating. Story 46. One can be dominant in the bedroom without conflating dominance with implicit instructions, rough sex, or always taking the lead. Women who enjoy being submissive appreciate the feeling of safety that comes from surrendering to someone they trust in a moment of complete physical and emotional vulnerability. It is a powerful and primal statement of trust. Many women do not have a safe place for unconditional surrender, a place that does not judge them for letting their guard down. For them, admitting it is not only a relief but also a turn-on and liberating to some degree to lean into their femininity in the presence of masculine energy. Dominance, to me as a man, means creating a space where my partner feels safe enough to surrender herself. Being dominant allows me to express what comes naturally to me as a masculine man. Leading, providing, protecting, supporting, and creating a safe space for my partner to express herself fully. By creating a space where my partner feels protected, provided for, supported, seen, and heard, she naturally begins to shed the armor she wears to protect herself from the harshness of the world. She becomes softer in demeanor, more feminine, soft-spoken, open to trying new things, and less argumentative. This, in turn, opens the door for her to initiate sexual intimacy through unfiltered expression, even as the submissive partner. Story 47. She told me once, when I think of great sex, it's when the man takes charge in bed and does what he wants. She is not lazy by any means, likes being my toy and being told what to do, enjoying seeing me get off. She is very kinky, the kind of girl you don't take home to meet your mother. Okay, lady, you got it. Story 48. To be honest, I would love to be dominated and embraced for once without having to do everything, set the stage, or worry about pleasing anyone. Story 49. It is exhausting. Many women want to be submissive so they do not have to make any decisions or do any preparation and cleanup. Men are generally valued only for their ability to work, in the fields, in the house, and in the bedroom. I do not know about the rest of you, but working all the time is starting to wear down my spirit. I am left with the question, is this worth it? And I am slowly losing the ability to answer that question affirmatively. Story 50. Being the one having to do everything in bed is the default setting for many men. There is not much point in talking about it. It is like saying, wow, I love being an omnivore, or something like that. Story 51. The biggest issue with any of the kinks is communication. Many people think in terms of themselves, so one person's dominance might be considered vanilla while another's is taboo. I don't mind being dominant. I just don't like guessing where the lines are. Story 52. Some men like to be dominant, and others like being dominated. Some women like to dominate, and others like being dominated. It all depends on the individual and the relationship. Story 53. So much work for 43 seconds. My wife expects it, so much so that I have prioritized taking care of myself for about the last month. Sex has become one of those things where it is easier not to than to. I do not mind being dominant. I actually enjoy it, just not every time. Story 54, and not especially. My potential partner would have to be explicitly direct about it. Even then, maybe not. You cannot force it. I do not naturally walk around thinking about dominating people. It does not really do anything for me. I think it is more about trust and connection personally. Plus, the worry about hurting someone. I once briefly dated a woman into really rough stuff, spanking, choking, and so on. I was not comfortable even with enthusiastic consent. Story 55. I am only willing to engage in these dynamics in an established relationship or an established sexual relationship. I am not going to dominate a woman I have just met. I am not comfortable doing that. Story 56. I feel like men are not often allowed to admit that they enjoy being sexually dominant because when women discuss female sexuality, it is seen as female empowerment. However, when men talk about male sexuality, they are often criticized. Interestingly, when men admit that they like being submissive, they are praised for it. Story 57. It is frustratingly mixed messaging given how much we are discouraged from dominant behavior outside of the bedroom. Years of feminist rhetoric led me to develop a serious distaste for this kind of behavior. It has taken, and continues to take, a long time for me to open up to being dominant in bed, but there is some extent to which I can get into it. Story 58. It's strange. I was taught by my female friends and society in general to respect women, get consent every step of the way, and never be aggressive or forceful. However, nearly every woman I have been with has expressed a desire to be dominated, only when they want to be. Because every time I have tried without that desire, I have been criticized for it. Women are not mind readers. You need to be clear about what you want. I have realized that what a woman wants changes frequently, day to day, hour by hour, sometimes moment to moment. Women are like a puzzle that changes shape every time you move it. I have never been with a woman I couldn't satisfy once I understood her, but figuring out what she actually wants can feel random and unpredictable. No matter what you choose, it may be wrong in that moment. Most women just want you to know. If they have to tell you, it ruins the moment. But their desires are constantly changing. More men are choosing to remain single, and I understand why. Still, I enjoy figuring out how to satisfy a woman too much to give up. I like problem solving. It makes me happy. It's like a game of finding Waldo, and when you find her, she expresses it in the most amazing ways. I rely on my skills because I can never fully figure out everything else. Dominant or submissive, tender or spontaneous, aggressive or deferring. One moment she wants to be playful in public, the next she is silent because you tried to show affection publicly. The most uncertain thing in the world is a woman. Maybe I just pick complicated situations. My friends say I tend to get involved with difficult relationships. They are not wrong. It's what I'm attracted to. So, I will keep searching for Waldo and be happy in life. Story 59. Personally, I enjoy the dominant role, but it has its ups and downs. We all want to be submissive deep down at some point. And having a main role in the bedroom can make switching difficult for a partner who is naturally submissive and has little experience with calling the shots, being assertive, and directing the flow. Story 60. As a man who also enjoys being dominated, I cannot and will not judge you for it. However, I am also quite sure that I am in the minority by not wanting to be the dominant partner in the bedroom. Story 61. No, it is not weird at all. Many people are interested in it. It is kind of hot, intense, and honestly flattering when a partner is into that. The reason you do not hear men talk about it much is because it is difficult to admit casually. People do not want to come off as creepy, and there is pressure to perform once they say they are into it. Also, it is private. But yes, when it is mutual, it is an absolute vibe. Story 62. I have enjoyed it. It is a shared experience. It should be fun for both sides. For me, it takes time, not too long, and feedback. The feedback is important to me. Story 63. I love it, but sometimes I just want to lay back and relax. It is a lot of work, and I am a big person. Story 64. I never enjoyed it. I used to be, and I did not like how women reacted to it. There was more fear than love. Gentle sensuality makes the experience more enjoyable in my experience. Story 65. Like any other kink, it is all about finding the person who is into it. While I can fully take control in the bedroom, I am not a dominant. Story 66. I am not into it. The idea makes me very uncomfortable. I am not passive, but I would not want to be the only one dictating where things go. I also feel bitter about the idea that a hypothetical partner might think less of me for not being dominant enough. I am in a long-term relationship with someone I am compatible with, but if I were ever in the market again, that would be a concern. I also feel annoyed at the idea that men are naturally like this, but modern society is oppressing us. Story 67. It is not a lack of wanting to be dominant, but these days, the fact that some women will retract consent after the deed makes being dominant almost riskier than being vanilla. The only time it actually works is if you are in a committed relationship already and opening up about preferences or part of a community that embraces that kind of lifestyle. Story 68. Do you like to be dominated because you are lazy and want someone else to make decisions and do the work? That is fine if it is your preference, but you should also do the same for your partner in return, or you are being greedy. Story 69. The thing about dominance is that it kind of kills the point of talking about it. It's exactly like how people who have to tell you they're smart usually aren't the smartest. So, the people who like being dominant or for whom it comes naturally probably aren't out there talking about it. I'll also add that dominance requires consent from the submissive partner. As someone who prefers being dominant, I don't get to just push that on someone else. Once I'm invited into it, the door is open to have that dynamic in the relationship. Story 70. I like to take the lead. I don't really think of it as being dominant. I check in and make sure everything I am doing is okay. Many women do not seem very eager to take charge of their own enjoyment. Story 71. I am outright uncomfortable with a lot of it. A combination of bad experiences and feeling it is something I sometimes have to lean into because it is part of my role as a man. I do not like power dynamics. I do not like feeling like I am overpowering someone, even if it is just playing. It is not my thing. Story 72. You are not supposed to talk about it. That is why you do not hear about it much. People will think you are a weirdo if you go on and on about how you love to be sexually dominant. Story 73. A lot of very true comments here. But one aspect I did not read from the others. Most women do not like talking about that aspect much. If it is said directly, women seem to be turned off by it or chased away. The problem is, the more dominant one partner is to be, the more it should at least be talked about beforehand. That is like bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, sadism, and masochism. It needs to be discussed beforehand. But therein lies the problem. Most women really do not like direct communication. They rely solely on indirect communication and refuse direct. So, it is checkmate most times for men to talk about it unless she brings it up first, which most do not. Story 74. Everything in balance. Honestly, I really like it when my testosterone levels are very high and I am in a passionate mood. I can fulfill the role without that, but that is the peak enjoyment. Story 75. I cannot speak for anyone else, but I do not find anything appealing about the dominant-submissive dynamic. I do not know about in real life, but online it seems a lot of women prefer it. To be honest, I hope that my future partner is not interested in it because it makes me pretty uncomfortable. Story 76. I like being a leader in the bedroom. I like to take charge and lead the dance, the first one to make a move. When the word dominance comes up, I don't tend to like that or associate with it. It makes me think of violence, degradation, condescension, and ownership. These are things I do not like espousing and do not find arousing. I like an equal dance partner. I'll lead, but she is right there keeping up step by step. This is just my personal view, though, and I'm sure there are men who do not share the same feelings about these concepts and treat them differently. Not judging someone else's preferences. As long as everyone is happy, I don't care. Story 77. Having sex in the doggy-style position and the partner wants there but spanked gently. Felt strange at first, wondering how hard to spank. Story 78. I do not like it. My only preference is that I get to grab a titty, so the rest is her game. That said, actually saying this from the beginning seems to have improved my Google review ratings. Story 79. My wife likes to be dominated to a certain degree, but not in the sense that I beat her, degrade her, or wear any costumes. She just likes me to take control sometimes. Maybe light choking here and there or grabbing her head during intimate moments and taking control that way. Personally, I love it, but I'm not sure I would want to be much more dominant than that. I don't really want to tie her up, slap her around, use a whip on her, or gag her. However, if she wanted me to do any or all of that, I would, for her. It is not something I would suggest for my own pleasure. Story 80. We usually cannot be the first to bring it up. It can definitely be taken the wrong way, so it has to come up either naturally during sex or in a more intimate conversation where the woman asks or hints at her preference for being dominated. That does not mean we do not have a strong preference for it. We just feel we have to keep it to ourselves, at least initially. Story 81. I am a dedicated submissive who is so focused on giving pleasure that I became a dominant. Finding a girl who actually enjoys pegging is very difficult. Story 82. There is a general lack of supply of dominance and tops in the dating market. I think many men would like to believe they are dominant, but many lack the confidence to actually take on that role and are more comfortable in a submissive role. Story 83. It is a natural instinct and fun to lead. Embrace that adventurous side and explore preferences. I notice subtle boundaries with appreciation. However, I understand it can be risky. Certain activities must be explicitly discussed, agreed upon, and accompanied by a safe word. Even then, sometimes it is staged for good reasons. Usually, outside of intimate moments, I am not always in the mood to take charge. Relaxing and enjoying the moment, I do not want constant intensity, feeling overwhelmed every second of my life. But I can do that too. It can be enjoyable if you know what you are doing and why. Story 84. Being used by a woman in free use would be good, but I tried being submissive once and it was not my preference. I thought it would be more sexual, but just being bossed around felt like being married. Story 85. Feels like I am doing something wrong. Women always told me I am too strong for my own good, so the first time a woman asked me to hit her in bed, I refused. No way all the gaslighting from women was going to be overwritten by one or two sexual experiences. Plus, all the men I see talking about how women like to get dominated are not good men. Story 86. I love it, to be honest. Turns me on when my partner is passive and lets me take the lead. Different people like different things. Story 87. Many men are uncomfortable admitting they enjoy dominating women in the bedroom due to strong stigmas against it. If a woman admits she likes being dominated, the worst reaction she usually receives is being called weird. However, if a man admits he likes to dominate women, people often label him a monster or a freak. Story 88. From what I have discussed with others, most men like to dominate, but many may not have been vocal if they felt the opposite, as it is sometimes seen as effeminate. For me, it really depends on the mood, but I would say I prefer to be dominated more than dominant. It feels amazing when I see my girlfriend desiring me and taking the initiative. Sometimes, I am just tired of doing the physical work in bed, and it is nice when my girlfriend takes charge. Regarding feeling uncertain about what you like or do not like, here's my advice. Do not try to provide explanations for yourself or others about why you like or do not like something. Just accept it, own it, and do not shame yourself. As long as you are not doing anything harmful to anyone, there is nothing to be ashamed of, and being confident in your preferences will help you greatly with your future partners. Story 89. I am Switch. Both are great. I am vocal about both. To answer your question, it feels great. I enjoy gently choking her and doing breath play with her while being on top. I also like being on top because I am able to practice a dominant and submissive type of position in a unique way for me. Story 90. Honestly, I have never felt more inadequate than when I was asked to be dominant. I am not creative enough to carry the entire session on my own imagination, and I am too soft-hearted to cause any pain or discomfort. All in all, I would much rather be the submissive. Story 91. I absolutely prefer being dominant. Love it. There is nothing better than a woman who loves to be manhandled. I am even open to the brat dynamic. That said, most of my friends are not. I think most men are pretty conventional for whatever reason. Story 92. I enjoy being dominant. I like initiating without asking as if I own her. I like knowing I can seduce her with a certain touch or kiss and she is mine. I like controlling her, positioning her, and making her obey my every whim. I just want to watch her orgasm repeatedly. It gives her a chance to turn her brain off and immerse herself more. It is not strange for women to want that. It is primal. Every woman I have ever been with wanted to be dominated at least some of the time. Roughness usually goes hand in hand, but not always. I enjoy it. I do not need it. The more she is into it, the more I am into it. I enjoy giving pleasure. I have gone too far and left marks. It makes me feel horrible. She laughs it off with an "it was worth it" sentiment. Variety is the spice of life. Everyone should have this in their playbook along with vanilla and other flavors they like. I do not mind being dominated once in a while as well. Story 93. Some of us like it, some of us love it, and some prefer to be dominated. I suggest people start taking a bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, sadism, and masochism test so they can gain a better understanding of what they like versus what they think they like. Story 94. I do not know, maybe it is the genders, maybe it is me. But when it comes to talking about sex with male friends, I speak in broad strokes. I do not get into the dominance and submission dynamic of it. I think when women talk with their friends about sex, there is a lot more detail. In my experience, I have always found that women like being sexually dominated in bed, but a good honest conversation beforehand about likes, dislikes, and hard limits makes for a much better experience for both parties. Story 95. I am the one in charge but nothing extreme. I would like a 60-40 split, but my wife prefers to be dominated respectfully. She calls it being worshipped. Story 96. I don't have a strong preference either way. Both work fine for me. By default, I assume women want to be dominated, so I take the dominant role. If I had to guess, I would say the majority of men prefer the dominant role. However, the extent they are comfortable going in that role is much more uncertain. Choking, slapping, and similar actions might be outside the median man's comfort zone. Story 97. Talking about being dominant is looked down upon in some ways, even before the past 5 to 10 years. Men generally do not talk about bedroom activities unless they are young and fresh from school, speaking with bravado about conquests or whatever is popular. Also, we usually keep intimacy private. Otherwise, it is often linked to assertiveness or confidence. Certainly, many men tend to enjoy being dominant in the bedroom. Of course, it takes a lot of energy, as physical movement is generally associated with dominance. It can be tiring for some, both physically and emotionally, especially if they feel like they are doing all the work. Being dominant requires effort. Regarding men's perception of women's preferences, most grown adults likely do not find it strange. Story 98. The women I have been with wanted to be dominated, but they also had a history of trauma, so I did not commit to it. Trust has to be mutual. It was great that they trusted me, but I did not trust them or myself. However, I developed more confidence after those interactions. I think things would be different now after 10 years. Story 99. It's something I have become more comfortable with as I have gotten older. More experience, confidence, and being with the same woman for 15 years, during which that dynamic has slowly evolved. 19-year-old me would not have been able to fake the dominant role if he had tried. Story 100. There is no dominant partner in my bed. My wife and I are partners, and that includes our intimate life. We ask for what we want done to us. We say what we want to do to the other person and give them a chance to agree or disagree. Often this is done with words, but we have been together for over a decade, so verbal communication is not always needed. Story 101. It is not something we talk about openly. For one, society would look down upon it as misogynistic or otherwise. Also, it is just not something that comes up anyway. It is natural for us and we accept it. Story 102. I feel like 60 to 70% of women like to be dominated in bed, while only 15 to 20% of men are really into it for themselves. Story 103. No, we do not prefer it. It is a lot of hard work. Can be fun once in a while, but you need to put in your share of the effort too. Story 104. I think one of the issues with the social climate is that men have to be careful about what they say and to whom. I do not mean it in a men's rights sort of way, just that we have been taught that a socially adjusted man needs to not give in to intrusive thoughts. This goes all the way from staring at something we like to sharing some of our darker cravings. I absolutely believe that there is a fair contingent of men who think that being dominant in the bedroom is wrong, so they push that side of themselves down. I personally love being dominant in the bedroom. My experience is what you stated. Many women prefer being dominated in the bedroom. Many are happy to explore that dynamic and go quite far into the dominance and submission world. For men, I think we need to do better about the subtlety of respect and understand that dominant does not equal disrespect. Story 105. Being dominant is important to me because a woman allowing you to be dominant means she is completely trusting you with her safety and giving you full control of her pleasure, trusting that you know her body well enough to satisfy her. It is a sexy dynamic. Story 106. Definitely prefer it, and it's great when it works out, but in my experience it is 50-50 if the woman actually prefers being submissive. What I mean by that is some women say that they are submissive and want you to take the lead, and then when you do, they are constantly changing things, asking for specific things, and saying what they would prefer and how things should go. All of that is fine, especially in the context of vanilla sex. I am not just talking about a woman setting a boundary during sex like no anal or something similar. But in the context of dominant and submissive sex, if you say you want that, and then everything I try to do gets shut down, altered, or directed, it does not feel like dominant sex anymore. It feels like rough sex, which again is fine, but more clear communication definitely makes things easier. If you add to that getting annoyed by me being dominant enough while shutting down every attempt at me being dominant, it just annoys me back and then I am simply not into it. Basically, when it works out it is great and I do like it. However, if you are unclear or unsure about what you want and you start getting upset at me for not providing it, or if you do not actually like being submissive but say you do, then it is very annoying and a turnoff. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.